Before I start in on the actual lecture, I just wanted to share with you a little bit. I've written some books on the subject. One is called Spiritualistic Practices in Healing. That one is for the church members because it correlates spirit prophecy writings with the various subjects that I bring up. And then I've written one that can be given to the non-Adventist that does not contain the spirit of prophecy, does not even contain the name of my medical school. You know, there's such strong prejudice against, not many people going to read something from an Adventist physician that writes. And so I put one out specifically for that purpose. It's not, doesn't have as much material, but it's very good. It has the basics of what I've presented today. That's called Alternative and Mystical Healing Therapies. Are they medically sound and spiritually safe? That's the title. And here are the things I thought I would read to you that are included, the subjects that are included here. I've only talked about meditation and yoga and acupuncture, but we're talking about astrology, acupuncture, applied kinesiology, aromatherapy, Ayurveda, biofeedback, chakras, crystal therapy, dowsing and divination. We're talking about divining for water, essential oils, homeopathy, hypnotism, iridology, martial arts. They're the same as yoga exercises. They came out of that in truth. Meditation, mindfulness meditation. It's just covering the world right now, and it's a form of Buddhism, period. Qigong, reflexology, Reiki, shiatsu, Tai Chi, and yoga exercises. Those are covered in the book. And then in the one for the church members, which correlates Bible verses, has a big appendix. The General Conference wrote a report in 1987. The Biblical Research Committee wrote about the Adventist and the New Age movement. It's a 30-page report, and in the appendix, it's in this particular book. I have their permission to include it. And their subject and mine go together like that. I put it in there to show that I'm not out there alone on this part. My work and so forth has been reviewed by people that have been deep in this for years and have come out in Christians. So what I'm presenting, even though I have not been an active member in doing these things, I've been looked at by those that did, and I've had the most accolades from those people than anybody because they understand what's being exposed. One pastor that was been in that was in Canada, and he even took my work and fixed it up and made a disc of it for his church. On there he had that, and he concluded. Have you heard the name Will Barron? Will Barron wrote the book Deceived by the New Age some years back. He has been a big help to me in this and reviewed my work on there. And he wrote me a note saying, your work is the work for the church, and this is the ultimate that we have. So I say this not as bragging, but to give you a little confidence that I'm not just all by myself having chosen to expose this. Why more people aren't interested boggles my mind. But pastors are afraid of me and so forth, afraid I'm going to cause confusion. But it's life eternal versus life forever, not death eternal on that part. Enough of that, but I just let you know. And for you that are staying till we finish, you're getting a free copy. And those are expensive. They're on Amazon on there. All right, let's proceed. Simon Magus, a man named Simon, had practiced sorcery in the city and amazed all the people of Samaria. All the people, both high and low, gave him their attention and exclaimed, "This man is the divine power known as the great power." Remember, from him we had the Gnosticism, and then on down through time, the doctrines that he was promoting. They followed him because he had amazed them for a long time with his magic. Chinese traditional medicine. I was in China a couple times. I actually presented a little of this at one small group. We get this to move forward. There we go. The traditional Chinese medicine goes way back, way back. It's hard for me to see it there. In 29 BC, you see right here, the circle of harmony, back to 2900 BC. Wow. That's a symbol of what? That story, false story of creation. Guess what? That was in the center of the graduation announcement for Walla Walla College for years. I wrote him a letter, and now it's taken off. It was innocently put there by the president was named Kellogg at the time, but it wasn't John Kellogg. Interesting. But it was felt, everybody thought, well, this just means harmony and peace. It stands for something different, like Coca-Cola has a signy. The Buddhists, or the Muslims have an insignia that we see that sign, we know what it stands for. This stands for something too, but it's been unrecognized by many people. And there's the Pakwa in here. Nothing is ever purely right or purely wrong, so they have this white, then the black, then a white, and then a white dot, showing that nothing ever is really pure. Christianity is a separation from evil. The devil's way is a mixture, a blend of good and evil. Remember we talked knowledge of the tree of good and evil. It means a lot more to you when you put all of these things together. And this one, he was an herbologist. He found 365 herbs and tried them on himself. Why 365? Everything's astrology, everything. Whenever you're participating in these, you're accepting astrology, because that's what's part of it. And this one, Yellow Emperor, author of the I Ching, the medical text. Very interesting. Now, this young lady is depicting the association. She's the microcosm, remember? Man, the microcosm. The universe, the macrocosm. And there are the planets. And so the association of planets, the sun, the moon, the earth, and man, signifying the foundation of Taoism, their beliefs. So Tao, the way, the three basics. Man is the image of the cosmos, fundamental in all that is done. Man is the image of the cosmos. Qi, the name of that so-called energy out there, the creative principle or the energy, divided into two divisions, the yin and the yang, and then those basic elements of the metal, water, wood, fire, and earth, which are synonyms for those 5 planets that's supposed to be what is still bringing creation and destruction ongoing. And there we look at those. We have in the center the Pakwa, metal, water, and then we have, I put up here Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. 108 planets. Well, we get the Tai Chi, 108 moves. See the tie-in? And this symbol we talked about this morning. The 3 basics, Qi, yin and yang. Everybody's heard of yin and yang. It's kind of like the horses, Jerry and, what was their name? They used to have teams of horses with their names. Okay, let's look at acupuncture. What is it? Well, the concept is that this cosmic energy is running through the body through meridians. This is only about a 2,000-year-old concept, and the needling for about 2,000 years, not 3, but 2. And before that, they did bloodletting, cut the skin and let blood flow from these areas. But supposedly they can look at your tongue or feel your pulse and determine where in the body you don't have adequate flow of this cosmic energy. And then they will prescribe and certain needles in various places of the body to make the change, because all disease, all problems are as a result of imbalanced energy in this concept. That's it, period. And if they can find where it is, and by putting a needle supposedly make a change in the energy flow, that's supposed to bring healing. And amazing how people tell how wonderful they get. Oh, right away, healed. But when it's put under real strict, and so later, scientific testing, it's the placebo effect, nothing more. Chinese physiology, it says this energy goes through my body and through the organs, every organ of my body, and they say I have 12, will have a 2-hour period. It's 1 hour of Chinese, but 1 hour of Chinese is 2 of my hours. So a 2-hour stint of extra flow to my brain, and then it goes to some other organ for 2 hours, always every organ getting some, but an exceptional amount for a 2-hour period every 24 hours, and that's the way the physiology is explained of how the body functions at that. And what causes the imbalances to make energy, to make sickness? Well, they say that the winds carry over 100 diseases, and they put these roofs with tips on the corners, so that when the wind comes, it throws the spirits and throws the illness in the sky away from you. And they say, well, the style of life and how you arrange your furniture in the house and all of those things involve the balance of this energy. The satanic concept is balance in some one form or another. And so they believe in a lot of prevention. They also believe that like cures like. If you have a substance that looks something like a particular organ of the body, then that substance will be good therapy for that organ. And the use of these substances that cause similar symptoms to an illness will supposedly be the cure. Also, they have, then we look at the lower half there, the energy balancing modalities. Meditation is moving energy, supposedly. Breathing exercises, moving energy. Martial arts, Qigong, Tai Chi, drugs, diet, minerals, herbs, moxibustion, acupuncture, and acupuncture. All of those are energy moving, where the others are like cures like. And we'll look a little more at that there. So a walnut looks like a brain. That's good for the brain then, because it's this sympathetic correspondence with the universe. You have something that's in a form, well, that'll be good for something else in that form that looks like it. So there's many different things they will use that way. And they want their children to eat pig's tails. Over there, the pig's tails evidently are straight. Here they're curled, most of them. And so that's a deal, to have children eat pig's tails, to have a straight spine. How about a ginseng root? Looks like the whole body of a man, for it's good for everything, because it covers it all. Courage. Eat a part of a tiger's heart, and that'll give you courage. Like versus like. Now, the methods of balancing energy. Tai Chi, you remember that's simple movements. It's 108 movements. But here in this country, they've reduced them down to about 37. The martial arts, we won't have time to get in there. If anybody's specifically interested, I have a handout for martial arts that I condensed what was on the internet. We have an Adventist man named Eric Wilson that is doing seminars on the martial arts. He was deep into this, came out of it, and he's exposing it. And I condensed his writings in about 15 pages. Mine, his was immense. But it shows that it's deep into this as everything else we've been talking about. And how, I was up in Canada doing a seminar last summer, and their only grade school, they just started a year or two before in that conference, they had initiated the martial arts for the students in there. And so I was able to share, I don't know whether it changed their minds, but I shared my material. And so these are the variety of things, methods of balancing the energy. We'll not go into them in too much, but you can have, martial arts is meditation. Martial arts in the meditation in action or in quietness. Moving meditation or motionless. It's a part of the meditation process. It's a little hard to explain here, and we won't get into that too much. The meditation exercise, breathing in. And I was in China in a park, and they were doing Tai Chi, and this one guy is just blowing the air and moving all sorts of things. And I asked him through a translator, and he was balancing the energy by blowing out. You just blow it out hard ever so often, and so forth. And so these are the concepts used to obtain physical and spiritual perfection. If they can get that energy just perfectly balanced in their body, then they're supposed to be, in the martial arts, not be able to be moved out of balance, or you cannot move them. I had one of the elders of a church I gave this talk to, and he came up to me later. He says, I was in this class, and our instructor says, see if you can move me. And 3 of us couldn't move him. Now, what power did that? There's only one power that would do that. Another one is a minister in our conference here that, as a student in college, he had a classmate or a roommate that was teaching him the martial arts. And then one day the roommate wanted the pastor to pick him up. He couldn't raise him. Before he'd been able to lift him, but he couldn't. He says, that's when I quit. That was enough. But this gives you an idea. Most of the people think of this, there's almost 30 million people at all times in training of that across the nation. And children, more than half of them down around 14 and below on this type of thing. We're told that the whole world will be in spiritualism, covered with spiritualism at the end of time, except for those that are deep in the scriptures. And you can see why when you see all of the things I'm talking about, how this comes along. All right? Tai Chi. In China in the morning, all over the country, people are out for a half hour or so doing this. And it was interesting, when the weather's good, they're just everywhere. And then suddenly they're gone, they're off to work. The 108 planets, 108 moves, pulse diagnosis, Chinese concept of the physiology. We've mentioned that already. We'll not take time. And here is moxibustion, where they would burn. Going way back, remember the Hindus used a hot poker or something to burn on the skin. And this was done, and then eventually they got into the needles. And you can do it by simply shining a light on the spot, or it doesn't matter where. Or actually you can do what they call Qigong and dance around the individual and accomplish the same thing and never touch their skin. It's all up here in the head. It has nothing to do with, there isn't one of these practices that I read about in here that have anything to do truly with physiology and accomplish. It's all the power of hypnosis. The National Institute of Health, 1997, determined that acupuncture works for some pain situations and for nausea of chemotherapy, and that the pain relief is actually weak. But then a few years later, when they had, in the meantime, established placebo ability to test with placebos, they had to change that statement. And they said, now the statement is more than 5 years old and is provided solely for historical purposes. Due to the cumulative nature of medical research, new knowledge has inevitably accumulated in this subject. Thus, some of the material is likely to be out of date, and worse, simply wrong. And then what they found, that all of the response in the past was simply a result of placebo. It's no stronger than a placebo. But placebo can make changes. So it doesn't mean that a person didn't maybe get better, but it wasn't from a physiological basis. It was from his mind, not just, they can really improve on things. So this is what makes it so difficult for people to believe that feel they have gotten better with something. And I could go through here, and we're not going to take time, but this in Seattle was a big study done, and they've done many studies with as many as 6,000 people over periods of years. And when they get through, the end result is a placebo effect. Now, there may be certain people that got more than that from a power that they bought into, but overall, it's considered no better than placebo. Now, let's finish off here. Back in China in 1949, Mao Zedong, with his communists, took over the country. He began to make some changes. Now, he didn't believe in the traditional Chinese medicine, although that's all he had for his army. He didn't have anything else, but he didn't personally believe in it. And he started making changes. He accepted that disease was there as something other than a balanced energy. And he began to bring about clean water, closed sewers, controlling vectors of parasite infection, controlling hospitals for tuberculosis, things, the types of principles given in the desert God gave to the children of Israel, principles of public health. He began to apply them, and in 50 years, the average, instead of 35 length of life, 70. That was the last century, one of the great medical victories of that century. Simple things, clean water, so forth. Not acupuncture. They had that for 3,500 years. Some of them, 2,000 years, the acupuncture. And the wrong concept of what caused disease. We're told by the spirit of prophecy it's the body's response to not following the rules of health. And yet here was an imaginary energy that by manipulating, doing all of these things, you could deal with it. Didn't work. The Latin forces of the mind. The apostles of nearly all forms of spiritism claim to have power to heal. They attribute this power to electricity, magnetism, the so-called sympathetic remedies. Remember that chart? I had the cosmos and I had the earth and man. Correspondence, association, sympathy. And for years I didn't know what she meant by sympathetic remedies. It has to do with those remedies coming out of the East and the West that are built on this principle, not on physiology as we know it. And it says, sympathetic remedies, or two latent forces within the mind of man. Remember the kundalini in the bottom coming up? That would fit into this latent force. It's not in the mind, but it's believed there. And there are not a few, even in the Christian age, who go to these healers instead of trusting in the power of the living God and the skill of well-qualified physicians. Danger of investigating. We have reached the perils of the last days when some, yes, many, shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Be cautious in regard to what you read and how you hear. Take not a particle of interest in spiritualistic theories. Satan is waiting to steal a march upon everyone who allows himself to be deceived by his hypnotism. He begins to exert his power over them just as soon as they begin to investigate his theories. Pretty quick. We've been talking about that which pertains to life eternal or eternal death. Thank you so much. Our Father, we are grateful for this privilege of sharing this information that may be shared with others, that may keep those that are tempted from imbibing in that which would lead to destruction. May it be that today our time has been of value to those that care. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, for each of you, each family, one to a family, I have